this week.
That's some
Hopefully.
fantastic sounding music.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Last week we had an audio routing issue. Fun times.
Fun times.
Fun
Hello,
times.
our lovely, lovely people, our lovely friends. Welcome back to another episode of Testing Normal. This is Curtis.
This is Jordan. We haven't
And
done that in a
we're...
while. I didn't even know what to say.
I know. Feels good. A little throwback.
I like it.
Throwback. We're rolling on episode 107, I believe. Is that correct,
wait.
sir?
I left our music on. It's going off now.
There we go. Sorry, guys.
I was like, why is there like 14 songs going on right now? Yeah. Well,
We like music.
yes.
Well, I think we're on episode 107. Is that correct?
We are 107.
107. That's a good number. Oh man, guys.
Are you a little tired there, Curtis?
I'm a bit tired. I have been going nonstop this week and last week too. A lot of like meetings for work, and then a lot of chores and family activities, and it's good. Like, it's better than having nothing to do.
Right.
But I also have learned about myself. I have to be a little conscious of if I don't make myself stop, or if Annie doesn't tell me to stop, I won't, and I just like keep go. So I found out that I have to be conscious of not burning myself out. And so I'm working on it.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
Well, you
Yeah.
also go in like spurts of work too, and then spurts of rest. So
Yes.
yeah, it's a roller coaster of exhaustion.
Right. Yeah, it's not consistent. It's not consistent with work. As far as the schedule. So Jordan, you said you were working on your car this week. Did you put a Hemi in it, or what'd you do?
2 Hemis, yeah, with a dual barrel, quadruple exhaust. No, I just changed oils and washed them.
Nice. NOS Bogger kit. You got a NOS Bogger kit in your Subaru?
Yeah. We actually, I went to get some stuff for one of the cars, and as it turns out, it didn't have a check engine light on. It just had gone 4,000 miles past when it was supposed to have oil changed in it.
Nice.
Not the car I drive very often
Gotcha.
at all. That was the first time in quite a while. And while we were there, we saw this car that had like no body, just like bars put into it. It looked like an old. It wasn't a Fiero, but it was like that size of car, and just had no doors or anything. Like, it was like this person was turning like some grandma's sedan into a dune buggy, and it had this NOS bottle in the middle.
Sweet.
And my son got super excited. He goes, "That car has NOS." And I'm like looking at it, and it's like the cheapest tires you can get and everything, and this giant NOS bottle. I said, or they just have a sticker on there that says that, and it looks cool-ish, but it's not really NOS. Because if someone turned NOS on in that car, it's going to explode.
It actually is a grandma's car, and that's her oxygen tank that she left in the car because she has COPD.
Maybe. That actually is probably more likely than this car being able to use NOS. So I would side with that.
That's funny.
So anyway. Yeah.
So this week, guys,
Got some weird.
We don't want to sound like broken. I know my video, I think, has got some lag to it.
It does. It's fine. We're good.
Is it my end?
I think it's your end.
Let me know if you need me to
but
do
it's
something.
good. You're fine. Your sound is fine. So
Okay.
that's what matters the most.
So, okay, guys, this week some crazy stuff's been going down, and I need us to recognize it. And I know I sound like a broken record, but I think both Jordan and I have kind of collected some information about this week, and we'll tie this into a crazy Microsoft situation. But I want to just start off the conversation with saying I do see the value in having trade amongst multiple nations.
Wait, is this the one? China buying up farms?
Yep. Mm-hmm. And I do see the value in being able to have currency and goods exchanged between countries, because some countries are vast, have lots of resources in one thing, and other countries have resources in another thing, right? It's natural. I get it. It's good. But there has been a recent acknowledgement from the United States government that certain nations have been buying up increasing amount of American agricultural land and American food systems and infrastructure systems. And a lot of these companies are tying back to being owned by China or China
Well, I was gonna say, to be clear,
conglomerates.
because they're communist, everything is owned by the Chinese Communist Party.
Yeah,
If there's a
yeah, very
CEO
true.
that's a billionaire, they've just been allowed to be the custodian of that.
Right.
We saw that in the leaks
So,
last year with the Australian CCP members. Like if they come out and they're
mhm,
allowed to go to these schools, they still have these deals. They must report back. They must create cells.
right.
Like that's all the way to the top.
Well, so here's an example. Over the last decade, they've been buying, like I said, snapping up farmland, purchasing major agricultural businesses. Um, like they own one of the largest pork producing processing plants in America. And they've controlled over, it's like basically over, it's hundreds of thousands. It's like, I can't remember if it's 200,000 or 300,000 agricultural acres in 2020. They've purchased up like over $1.9 billion of land recently, of ranching, forestry, agricultural departments. Um, and the issue is like Jordan said, a lot of these companies, even if they don't say that they're directly owned by China, what's happening is there's shell companies that say they're based out of like Amsterdam
Mm-hmm.
or based out of Switzerland or something like that. And but the shell company is a subsidiary of a larger conglomerate that's owned by the Chinese party.
Usually like a China bank or a large China investor, which again goes back to it's all owned by them.
And what I see, and I'm seeing this continual foreshadowing, is China is playing the long game,
Mm-hmm.
and to their part, like, I mean, they're doing a really good job at it. If you're trying to win, right? China's winning in this area of they are investing in our infrastructure, whether it's agricultural. They already own the majority of the world's pharmaceutical productions, like as far as like a lot of the necessary antibiotics that the United States use, even basic like IV fluids. Obviously, this last year we saw masks, we saw gloves. Like they
Tests.
produce the majority of medical supplies,
Mm-hmm.
um, to the point where the United States didn't have supplies until China decided to give them to us.
Right.
So they're creating multiple avenues of dependence on them, right?
Right.
And so that ties into what we've seen recently, where Microsoft, it was released and the US government acknowledged it, that the Chinese government hacked into Microsoft, one of their main apps within Microsoft. What was the app called that they hacked into in Microsoft? Do you remember, Jordan?
Back.
I have it. I can find it. Um,
This is mine's not a hack, so I don't know if yours was a different
breaching
one.
Microsoft's email system. So they breached Microsoft's email system that many of the largest, like our government and many military
Oh, that was
contractors were using.
SolarWinds. That was the SolarWinds
No,
hack.
no, no. This was a different one.
Oh, okay.
This is a different one. Yeah. Like even NATO. So even NATO acknowledged that this was a terrible hack. And what's happening is because China has now become the provider for so many resources and the owner of so many resources, even like infrastructure for internet. They've laid a lot of cable lines outside of the US and in other countries
Mm-hmm.
that if the US wants to penalize China or put more tariffs on them, it's almost like we're penalizing ourselves because China's market has grown so large that they have now an abundance of leverage over us.
Right.
Um, where we were able to kind of put sanctions on Russia, right? When we saw more of that hack that took place. But with China, the best we can do right now is do a verbal reprimand because they have so much leverage. It's
Right.
it's it's terrifying
Well, Amador
for
said
our sake.
when they couldn't control us fast enough, they created a virus to try to take us out. So there's certain things we can't say because we actually literally will get our video taken off of
Yeah.
YouTube once we post it and everything. But I will say, um, if you haven't seen the video of Rand Paul backing Dr. Fauci into a corner, it happened that it was either today or yesterday. He said, "Hey, this is gain of function, and it says here what it defines gain of function as taking something that is either not transmittable or very little transmittable to humans and altering it so that it is from an animal. And that's the testing that they have on record that the NIH paid for and was signed off for by him. And they said, now you were under oath when you told us this never happened before. Would you like to recant your statement and not be held to that? And he said, that's not gain of function. that's your definition of gain of function. And he goes, no, that is the gain. That is the definition of gain of function. You're now redefining it, and now they are pushing to further like bring charges against him. Whether or not we'll go anywhere, I believe that there's some other people that are going to be scapegoats because I think they're actually trying to promote the dude. But he should be. He should
I
be.
think I do agree. I'm not I'm not speaking to intentions of Fauci, whether I don't I mean, whatever conspiracy theories people have about Fauci, like I don't think he intended to hurt or cause an outbreak in the world personally, but I
I could
do
get
think
behind that.
I do think that he is somewhat responsible and should be held accountable to his part because there literally was gain of function research that was taking
Right.
place in the Wuhan lab. Like
Yeah.
whether or not he wants to acknowledge
Well, and
that
that's what kind
verbiage,
of makes it look
like
suspect. So
the U.S. needs to acknowledge, even if it's not Fauci, the U.S. needs to acknowledge gain of function was taking place, and we did add funding
which
to
is
it.
what they're trying to do, but here's what doesn't look good for him. So I would love to give just about anyone the benefit of the doubt, but when he continues to backpedal and say no it wasn't that, no it wasn't that, no it wasn't that, it does further make it look like he had something more to do with it than what you're saying. And that's the problem with him doing that, is saying
So
no
I
that's not
listened,
it.
yeah, I listened to that as well,
Hmm.
and what he did is he actually changed the subject.
Yes.
So Rand Paul was he wasn't actually trying to say that the Wuhan lab leak occurred due to the gain of function
No.
research. He wasn't trying to say he did kind of play the game of closely saying there could be a correlation
Yeah.
there, but he was trying to get Fauci to admit that there was gain of function research taking place
Right.
in the Wuhan lab.
Which was
That's
part of
simply all he was
their
trying to do,
questioning.
right?
That's all he was responsible for, which is true. And that was
Yeah.
going on based on, and so he like pulls up the document. He's like, it's right here. It says it. I'm giving you the opportunity to say it was going on so that you're not, so on the record is telling
That's
the
what looked
truth.
bad for him.
Yes.
I think
So it's
personally,
like,
that's what
just
looked
tell the
bad. Like he
truth.
wouldn't just admit, like, yeah, there was a simple
Right.
fact of gain of function research, which the U.S. has previously admitted to, like participating
Yeah.
in the Obama era as well. Like it
But
wasn't.
we do have records too, whether or not he meant for it to be this whole big thing, which it's still up in the air. We don't know. I mean, I would like to think it wasn't. I would say it's not looking good for him if he keeps backpedaling like this, like he has. But it is on record that he did sign off on the funding and push it through to make it happen in that lab, and it wasn't like equipped to do it. Like it shouldn't have been a lab that you would even do it in, and
Well,
they did.
what
So
I want to backtrack a little bit here and
yeah, that's fine.
um, get back to the subject of um,
I know.
control control. And I listened to an interesting conversation pertaining to government control from a regulatory internet perspective. Like China's kind of hacking, and they're trying to get, whether it's from hacking or whether it's from purchasing or whether it's from controlling certain resources. China made a pretty interesting rebuttal to the U.S. And they said, okay, you're saying we're hacking into your populace, we're infiltrating you guys, but you're being incredibly hypocritical because you yourselves are doing the same exact thing that we are doing to your own people. And Edward Snowden like released that to the entire world and
Yeah.
showed that you guys are more culpable than we are,
I
and you also tried to persecute your own individuals for doing that such thing. And that was actually a really fascinating thing because there's some truth to that. Obviously, it's not good for other countries to do it, but it's not great for our own country to do
No,
it.
no, I would totally agree with that. I don't think it's a bad response, but I would liken it to like, well, but you did it. It's instead of like, you're right, we should stop. And it's not the same thing. It's
Mm-hmm.
I
Totally.
think it's worse, but also it's like it's deflection. You see it happening.
It is deflection.
It's a narcissist argument of, no, it can't be me. We can't be the problem because you're doing it. And like,
Well, I think the argument was also tied to, it's like it's not just us, like everybody in all of the world is doing it to every country as well. Like you're
I
doing
would
it to the Chinese
I would
people as
make the
well.
argument, though, that it is the Chinese Communist Party which runs the country doing it. And it is a there's a great deal amount of people in our country, which are we're supposed to be a country that's of the people, by the people, for the people, and that's like where it's at the consent of the governed. So it's much different than that. So there is, I would say, a majority of people that don't agree with that going on and are trying to fight against it, whereas they're a country doing it, not allowing their people to fight against it.
Right.
And so
So I mean, that's good
that's
that we have the
right.
ability
So that's
to
a
fight
it's
against it,
I
right?
guess it's like it's bad. Yes, it's going on. We at least know about it and have the ability to speak out about it and see videos on it and talk about it and not get arrested for
Hmm.
it
Totally.
and not lose a social credit score. Although we're getting close, like
Hmm.
with censorship and people saying, well, you can't say that or it's misinformation. Things that were misinformation, 6 months ago aren't anymore. Kamala Harris said, I'm not going to take this because Trump says it's this, the vaccine's good. I'm not going to take it because I don't trust it. And now they say if you say that, you'll get in trouble. Like so it's like it's swapped and flipped plate. They both said that. So
Mm. Well, this is actually a really good segue into the current concerns we have with national censorship,
mhm.
and not just
Well,
national
so
but
before that,
worldwide censorship.
because it's sort of is in between there, is
Yeah.
I was reading about Microsoft, and so like a lot of
Oh yeah.
like a lot of companies have done this, but I always want to call it out when it happens because I don't think it should happen. It's like the Fast and the Furious 9 guy apologizing that he said Taiwan wasn't a country and it was complete goober, and I'm sure he was just bribed with money and told he would never have a job if he didn't do it. So it's like this at one point I have to think maybe he didn't have a choice, maybe he did, maybe it was suicide. Either way,
Mm.
like
Oh yeah, yeah.
um,
McAfee.
no, not him. The guy who was the dude on Fast and the Furious 9 who said he apologized to the Chinese people that he called Taiwan a country.
Oh. Oh yeah, yeah.
John Cena.
He lost all credit in my world,
Yes.
but yeah, John Cena.
Um, so still a good movie, but the dude, you know, don't bow to but don't bow to China. We've got Microsoft now collaborating with sanctioned Chinese military proxy to build an operating system for the Chinese Communist Party. There's another country that does this already, and we know what happens when they do this, and that is North Korea. North Korea, there's only one operating system allowed. It's built by their government. You have to apply to have a computer. The computer is subject to seizure and search once a month, along with their phones. They all
Whoa.
have their own operating
Wow.
systems, and it allows them to control anything and everything. If you have one of their computers, it can only open up files that are created on the computer or ones that are created by the country, and they will all be tagged and logged, and they will check it once a month if you even can afford to have one, let alone just be poor. And
Mm.
most people can't anyway, but even the richest of
Yeah.
people, that's how you
Wow,
have to
that's
have.
wild.
So we see Microsoft now going down the path of working with them to make an operating system. Google has a new Google for just China, and it was basically a test net to eventually filter things out here by keywords and do it by AI. We've seen that take place. We've been seeing that take place for the last decade, but at an alarming rate now. So that's just
Ooh, that's
that's just
interesting.
more control that we're seeing now. And we can get into this a little bit, but just to kind of like give you kind of a teaser, there was a conference that happened today between Elon Musk, I can't remember her first name, but Kathy Woods, who's
Today?
ARK investor, and
Ooh,
also Jack Dorsey of Twitter, talking about Bitcoin
today?
and
Whoa.
acceptance in the business community. But something that came up in that, and it'll just kind of wet your whistle because we'll get to it in a minute, is he talked about a decentralized social media platform.
Who did?
Dorsey. And I have
Fascinating.
some thoughts. But before we get there,
Oh,
I know now you're like,
that's a
but
fascinating one.
wait, but wait. Yes.
Huh. A decentralized social media platform. So it would be ran on multiple computer hubs or nodes,
Right. Before
and
we talk
it
about
would
that, hang on,
then.
hang on, hang on. Before we talk about that,
Huh.
let's talk about Pegasus because first we need to
Okay.
attack
Okay.
the
Yeah.
insanity. So,
Okay. Pegasus.
you have
So
you have you have done more on this. Let me give you my brief version that I know, and then
tell me. Yeah,
you
please do.
are going to fill in the details because what I learned is that Pegasus is it's a software glitch or whatever that's been designed for mobile devices, namely Android and iOS devices. It was known or made known to us around 2015 to 2016, which would have been right before the
Hmm.
elections before, which we know that there was some hacking and stuff that was done to both sides during that time. But it allowed for the complete control of mobile devices, mostly through like click through type things. So if you think of like normal malware, like, oh, I opened this email, I thought it was from a friend, I clicked on it, and now I have malware and pop ups and viruses and whatnot. It would operate similar to that. What has happened recently and become known to us in the last few weeks is that this has been updated. It has been created by a company, an NSO, or NSO is the name of them, right? And they're based out of Israel, I
Hmm.
believe, somewhere over there.
Hmm.
And they sell this technology, and it is a zero click technology. If you pay them enough money, they claim that they can basically get into anyone's device without them knowing it. They have access to the camera, the microphone, every single app that is on it, just as if they were the user. So if you think like Signal is encrypted, my iMessages are encrypted, my pictures are encrypted, or even nobody can see out of my camera or hear my microphone, this country can do so. And it's been reported that up to 50,000 devices have been infected within the last year with this new type of exploit, one of which is still being investigated, but is a reporter that was out of Iran that was killed after being surveyed as a result of this. Is that pretty
So
pretty?
pretty good. The reporter he wasn't from Iran. Wasn't he Saudi? He was Saudi Arabia.
I was saying I
Uh,
think Iran did it. I don't. I
oh, no. It was a sheik
okay.
it was like the head sheik out of Saudi Arabia, and he essentially purchased this software
Okay.
from this company, and it was maliciously obviously put onto his phone, and
Okay.
they were able to see the information that he had collected, and he was going to report on
Gotcha.
the negative press towards them. And so that facilitated him to say, yeah, go kill this dude before he can release this information.
Yeah.
um, but yes, Jordan's, you're right. It allows, basically, it can secretly infect a mobile phone and harvest information from emails, texts, contacts, location data, photos, videos. All of that can be extracted. They can access the microphone, they can access the camera, and all of that can be basically covertly recorded. Um, and it's essentially, if an organization can pay enough, if they say, hey, they haven't released how much it costs, but this organization can and has been used by governments. And so there's a concern saying, now, whoa, essentially the reliance we have now on our technology and on our phones, like, essentially we are to a point now, we're at a precipice, right, of all of our information no longer having any type of confidentiality, you if you have basically offended or gone against a governmental, or
Right.
anybody that has enough money that doesn't like what you did. Um, and I was actually, how Pegasus infiltrates phones. There's a diagram talks about it, and it says it can be installed on phones through vulnerabilities in most apps, or by tricking and targeting into clicking malicious links. So obviously, like, SMS, WhatsApp, iMessage. And iMessage is supposed to be like one of the most secure forms of messaging, other than, it's supposed to be secure as far as Apple is. Um, and then, yeah, it's a wildly invasive uh,
Now I would say they're
software.
all as secure. They're all as secure as getting into your phone. So, if someone gains root access or administer access to the core of your phone, I mean, it's they can get into anything. The nice thing is things like Signal and whatnot. If you notice my phone goes missing or something is up, I can go into my Signal app on my computer and
Mm.
disconnect it. Like I can disconnect every other connection from another spot. So that's it's something, but it doesn't mean that it doesn't really get a lot out of there. Oh my gosh, I'm just dropping stuff. Oh yeah, I have your stuff. So
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to get that.
the yeah, it's terrifying because Snowden he spoke out on this. And one thing that he said that I was like, yeah, this I mean, it's something that people don't think about is like it's not like my computer where I could have a different encryption. I could have a different malware. I could have a different this. I could have a different that. Every iPhone is the same. So once you've been able to hack one iPhone
Mm.
and that version of iOS, you essentially can do that to any iPhone in the world that is running that iOS or later, or that iOS or older. So that's why it's important to take those updates and get them. I know that I've seen people that have been so far behind that it takes hours to update their phone. And like, it's not just about like, is this annoying? Is this going to make my phone slower? That's all just, honestly, I think that's just FUD to keep people from updating, or just to get you to buy a new phone, because phones are always going to feel slower because apps get crazier. So don't
Hmm.
wait that long for a new
It's
phone if you don't
interesting
want it to
that
be
this.
slow. Get the
It's
update.
interesting that software like Pegasus is able to um, counteract so quickly those security updates and those software
It's
updates.
funky what some of the so it's sometimes it's getting an exploit is really just a matter of like finding, and I'm not a hacker, but I understand the concept behind it is to get a memory leak or something that gets it to kind of like cough a little bit, and then you can get into the core of the system. So there was a while back, there was a text you could send with certain characters to people in iMessage, and it would lock their phone. Like, it would just restart their phone. And it was just a matter of a certain character in a certain way, in a certain order, caused the code in the phone when it tried to display it to blip. And people
Hmm.
used that in order to do cool things with their phones, but people that aren't nice use it to do bad things with their phone.
People that aren't
So
nice.
yeah, so an exploit can be good in the sense that, okay, now I can actually control the device that I have, because people will use that. You hear about people jailbreaking their iPhones and being able to install stuff on it that Apple doesn't want them to. Largely, a lot of that Apple has started allowing now, just out of your own like choice. But back in the day,
Hmm.
those exploits were used by good people, but they also can be used by nefarious people that just want to have the next hack into the phone. And once they've
Right.
gotten one, they can get another. It's like when Obama went into his presidency. This was so long ago. This is dating a lot of people, but there were no iPhones when he was during his first term, and he had a BlackBerry, and he was known for being addicted to his BlackBerry. Well, he wasn't allowed to have a normal BlackBerry. They had to pay millions of dollars to have two different phones. One is his normal phone, and one is a backup that he could have. So it was all manufactured and everything just for the president, just because he
Oh,
was like
that's
the
interesting.
first president that carried a mobile phone or that had one assigned to him. Um, and I was like, kind of a big deal. Like it was a specific device designed. Everything was like gone through with a fine tooth comb to make
Smart.
sure. Yeah, I mean, it's good. And people are like, "Oh, that's wasteful" and everything. I'm like, I don't think they spent enough. Like, are you kidding me? Like, that's a big deal. Like 'em or not. Like, you want to make sure that person stays safe. Otherwise, it could mean utter doom for the people that he rules, whether they agree with his policies or not. It could be much worse if something happens to him.
Well, I
So,
think you know, before we get too far into the podcast and wrap things up, I'm not ready to wrap things up yet,
no, no,
but um, I think we definitely need to acknowledge the fact that two of the wealthiest people in the world. I don't really know if Richard Branson is one of the wealthiest people anymore, but um, definitely Jeff Bezos is.
yeah.
Um, shot themselves into outer space
I was thinking
this
about that.
past week.
That was yesterday, or not yesterday. It was the day
J-
before. It was
uh,
Tuesday.
Bezos was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I thought, you know what? How smart is that? I mean, it'd be like if say it blows up, right?
Hmm.
And we've seen that before. And when I was a kid, it was quite a while ago. Actually, it might have
Yeah.
been before I was born. But that teacher like won the trip to go on
Yeah.
the spaceship, and then gets her whole class is like there to watch, and like that just happens. I mean, it's sad, but like it's a dangerous risk. Like you know every
So
time you get in a
Richard
car.
Branson's his way that he took off seems way safer to me.
How was
Did you
that?
see the way he did it?
Off a plane?
So yeah, so his glider that had a jet at
Right.
first, but he took a plane and then it detached from the plane and then it had a jet that shot off.
Right.
That seems I don't know why, but in my
Yes and
head that
no, but
seems
you
like
got
a
to
safer
ride the
process.
plane up there. What if you fall off too soon? You fire the jet and just become a yard
Yeah, you
dart?
glide
Or
down. You'd glide down because that's how it comes down as it
yeah,
glides.
but you got to have enough height. Like if you're only 100 feet off the ground, a parachute's not going to do you any good. Like,
Okay, here's a question. Here's a question though. Real talk for everybody out there listening.
yes,
if Jeff Bezos had asked you, would you come along with me for this, first expeditionary flight?
Oh,
Would you go along with him?
yeah, I wouldn't pay $250,000 for it, but
No, but you would have done it for free.
yeah, heartbeat.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I think. Okay, I was trying to think about this the other day. How much would I be willing to pay if he said, like, hey, you pay $100, you'll come with me. Okay, yeah, I'll
But
do it
how
for $100.
high? How high would you go?
How high would I go? How high would I go? I think Amador. What would you do, buddy?
He said
Oh,
no.
Amador says no,
But
no.
here's the deal. Okay,
Um,
Amador, I'm going to try to
mm,
convince Amador that he would go. Because I think he would. And the reason why is if you were going with Jeff Bezos, okay, richest dude in the
ooh,
world, right?
connections.
No, 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 not connections. How safe is that? I mean, they're going to
Mm,
do everything they possibly can to make sure
mm-hmm.
that dude survives and makes
Right.
it. So the safest flight you could take would be the one with that guy.
Yeah, that's true. I think I think I would do it because a lot of my life I see a lot of value in experiences. And so like just recognizing who I am, I would probably be willing to pay thousands. I would pay thousands. I don't think I would get into tens of thousands, but I would probably pay
I mean,
thousands to
here's
do
the
it.
deal at this point. If you paid thousands and everyone knew that you were the one that went up there, you're probably going to make that money back.
Ooh, for an interview. Yeah, that's true. Or like I could be like, listen, me and Jeff had a conversation, guys.
Yeah.
I gotta tell you about it, but it's gonna be a one-time release. Whoever wants to,
Yeah.
have me. We talked about some very secretive stuff.
Yes.
There,
Oh my gosh.
you'd have to sign some non-disclosures, I'm
Oh, I'm
sure.
sure. Yeah. Yeah. I would ask him like, what
And
kind of razors do you use on your head? Is that natural? Do
are you a robot?
yeah. So
Yeah,
so
that's
speaking
fair.
of rich people, I mentioned that there's a couple of rich people that interviewed. Before I get to that, what made me think of this today, what I thought of when he was a quote that was earlier this week. Came out of the White House. Jen Psaki, circle back, Miss Circle Back, or what was it? Somebody had a picture of her up the other day, and she was supposed to be
Hold on, you see what Amador said.
supposed to be Miss America, and it said misinformation.
Oh, that's
Was her
funny.
name? He said,
Amador said he would go
okay,
though. He
honestly,
said
I would
honestly he
go
would.
because I like attention and imagine the hype behind that. See, I knew it. I convinced him.
That's fair.
And he's going to
That's
say
fair.
I didn't convince him, but I did. Everyone was here to see it, and I convinced
Truth.
him. So,
Truth.
so this
Truth.
quote that was said by Jen Psaki, and it's a video. I'll put it in our show notes, whatever. But she said, and this is their official position from the White House, is that if you are banned on one social media platform, that you should be banned on all of the others at the same time.
And is she the press secretary?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And so that's, to me, that's like, okay, like
Well, it's just silly.
that sounds very CCP. It sounds very, very social credit score. They
Mm.
launched that happened. If those of you have seen Black Mirror, you've seen the frightening events that could happen in a society that's not communist, where that starts to take place and turns us that way. It's a scary place to be, right? So this conversation that happened today revolved around a couple different things, and it was these very wealthy individuals. One was Elon Musk, and one was the ARK CEO or founder, Kathy Woods, and it's an investment firm. And then not Jeff, Jack Dorsey. Jeff Bezos stuck in my head. We're talking about too many big folks. And they're talking about Bitcoin and the adoption of Bitcoin for companies, what it's going to look like, how much they have, and everything. And there's a couple things that I want to point out. It's kind of some bullet points, and then we can chat about the last thing, which is the last of my bullet points. Number one is that SpaceX, a non-public traded company, it was disclosed today, holds Bitcoin of its own. Not
We already knew that though.
No, we did not. We knew that Tesla did because they are a publicly
Oh,
traded
okay.
company. SpaceX is not, but he said they have their own individual holdings. That was disclosed today. That's new information. Tesla still has holdings. They did not sell off even after they stopped taking it. They haven't sold any of it, he said. Elon has his own Dogecoin that he is invested in. He said a little bit, but I'm hearing a lot of rustles around that he actually owns upwards of a third of the coins, or controls the wallet or has access to that wallet. And he
Hmm.
owns his own Bitcoin. He came up with a rad idea that I think is going to probably change the face of everything, which is he said, if you need a space heater, why not make your space heater a mining rig, and be a part of the network
Mm.
that actually like does the transactions for cryptocurrencies and earns you money while it heats you up. It uses roughly the same amount of energy. Why not?
Mm, fascinating.
Um, and then he asked pointedly to Jack Dorsey if he was going to start accepting cryptocurrency for ads.
Elon asked Jeff
Yeah, and
or Jack.
have you ever thought about using it? And then Jack kind of danced around the question. He goes, but are you going to do it? And he's like,
No.
and then he like laughed. He goes, I want to know the answer. Does he? Are you going to do it? Because
What? I gotta watch
he's like,
this.
if there's going to be adoption, then companies have got to start taking it. Certainly, you've thought about taking it, or you should.
Well, so
And
I guess Twitter. What type of payments do people?
for
Why would?
ads,
In, oh, so like,
for people
how
that,
would that work though?
well, when
Over
people
Twitter,
pay for ads, instead of paying in US dollars, they pay in crypto. Maybe give them a
they
discount.
pay Twitter.
Yeah, they pay
Okay.
Twitter. Like Twitter would take that as a form
Right.
of payment, like
Right.
MasterCard and Visa. Um,
Mm-hmm.
then Dorsey was talking about how Bitcoin should shape social media platforms. I'm like dying. And how they were coming up with, and I can't remember what he said it was, codename something or other, but it sounded like it was, at least to me, it kind of, my brother had a different take on it or said it could have been both. I think it's this, that it is a separate social media platform that they are working on that is decentralized and not controlled by one person, but controlled by, same as like a ledger is for cryptocurrency, so that you can't just be banned. It has to be a consensus of the network that you should not be allowed. And that would be very, very difficult to do.
That would be
And
so hard. I don't even know how you
also
could
things
do
could
that.
never be removed from the ledger. So it's always there. Like it's anyway. I thought it was interesting, and my take on this was, and I'm curious to see, because my brother was like, "What do you? Okay, why would that benefit him? How is he trying to twist this? This is a dude that
Mm-hmm.
has like censored people. It's come out. People are suing him, and I think he has too much power. A lot of other countries do. You know, whatever you stand on that, it's a big question mark, right?"
Mm-hmm.
I said, if I gave him the benefit of the doubt, I would say he's a pretty young guy. He moved up really, really fast in a space that never existed before. And now he's a publicly traded company and he doesn't have as much say. And maybe it was just too late before he realized, oh no, we're being taken over by the CCP. And he has no choice but to run by those rules. But if he creates the solution, then he has a way out.
Mm. So did you take it as an interpretation that Twitter itself could potentially be transitioned into a decentralized platform?
I think it could have been what he was saying, but it sure as heck sounded like he was talking about a separate platform.
Okay. Interesting. Fascinating.
Because I don't know if he could
Hmm.
do that and hand over control of a publicly traded company like that.
Right. Yeah, because he couldn't make that sole decision.
Right.
Like it would have to be a board decision.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Interesting. Wow, that would be a big play. That'd be a big play for sure. That's fascinating though. Wow. Yeah, I foresee in the future there will be as the need for security increases,
Mm-hmm.
right? So will the utilization of decentralized platforms. And I think it's going to not just be social media platforms, but I think actually it's going to be, I think, I think honestly, there's going to be like banks. I think there's going to be many forms of investment platforms,
Well, there already
forms,
are.
because
There's DeFi platforms, and that's what cryptocurrency is trying to do. And I think a lot of
yeah,
people won't adopt that portion of it. I think there will be options to do so.
hmm
But there are already exchanges that are completely decentralized, not controlled by an entity, that take place purely in a trust system that is between two people in an offering, much like if people follow stocks, kind of like OTC, but like without the person doing it for you. Like you can just meet someone up, like if you were to like sell stocks on Craigslist, but really fast. That's similar to how it works, but also in like with cryptocurrency, a lot of people just buy on Coinbase, and you're not. I mean, it's yours, but it's kind of like an IOU. You don't actually control the wallet or the keys. It's until you transfer it out to a wallet that you actually control the keys for.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I think that will become a lot more commonplace. There's a lot more. Dorsey did talk about them creating a hardware wallet for cryptocurrencies, which is a device that you can store your cryptocurrency offline and
Mm.
and have a backup of it, but nobody can get to it or use it. And so it's like having it in a bank, except not paying the bank to do it. One thing that Elon Musk mentioned today, and he said, I think that more institutions are going to start putting more and more of their money into cryptocurrency, whether it be Bitcoin. They all seem to think like Bitcoin is the store of value. It's maybe not what you're going to buy your groceries with all the time, but like it's where people will keep things as a savings account.
Mm.
As he said that
Mm.
their
That's interesting.
European accounts right now for Tesla have a negative interest rate, and he can literally watch their money go down as they store it in the bank.
Interesting. A negative interest rate.
He said
That's
he said
I've heard of that. That happened, I think, during. I've heard of negative interest
Mhm.
rates. Because it, but when it's digital currency, that doesn't make a ton of sense.
Well, is it digital currency if it's in the bank, or is it the bank's money? I think you're right. It is digital, but it's controlled by the bank. But because it's a store of value and it's backed by them and all that kind of stuff.
Okay, backed by them.
So
Yeah, I
he
get it.
said, mathematically speaking, if interest is lower than 2%, okay, your
Mm-hmm.
your actual interest rate is negative in your account because of
Mm.
inflation. Your interest
Mm.
rate is negative. So he said, even if it goes up and down, you're better off just keeping your money in a digital currency that is established because it will go up, guaranteed over time.
More than 2%.
Yeah. In fact,
Yeah.
there's a company right now, and I don't even have this in my show notes or anything. It's a side conversation that took place late last night with me and my brother. There's a company called BlockFi that is being attacked by the state of New Jersey. I don't know any of the details surrounding it except for what BlockFi is a store of value for cryptocurrencies that has a high return yield on annual interest rates. So
Mm.
certain coins are between 6.5% and 10% return a year,
Oh.
and New Jersey's going after them. And he and I both suspect that it's because the banks want them gone because they can't compete. So if someone takes their money, even if it's in U.S. dollars, and puts it in there, and they're earning 7.5, 10%, the bank is not going to have that money. I mean, do the math.
Mm.
If you put $1 million,
Well, if you carry the two.
yeah, if you carry the
Yeah.
two and you put $1 million in there, you're at least going to get $10 a month back in interest rate, and it pays out once a month. So
That's interesting.
that's
Mm. It's a good investment concept for everybody to
but
think
there's
about.
banks fighting the decentralization because they actually can't compete because they're government controlled and their numbers are
Right. Right.
so they and
Regulation
because
there.
they have so much overhead. That's the one thing that I don't understand. It was the one thing that they were pretty pointed at asking Elon, is because he said they stopped taking Bitcoin payments for Tesla because they weren't using renewable energies for mining Bitcoin. And that aside, he said that if it goes over 50%, they will start again, which he thinks that they're going to be starting up again here really soon because they've gotten to that number. Um, and my question is, how much energy do all the banks, do all the cars getting the people there, running all the lights, running all the computers, the cost of making all of that to run our monetary system? How much
Right.
energy do you think that takes? And is it
Right. Yeah.
renewable? Is it clean? I mean, there's like how many banks in a
There's
small
a
town
bit
that
of
we live in?
a pot calling the kettle black,
Well,
right?
there's a little bit of a, hey, we use energy too. We get it. We have to live in this world. We're not going to not use energy, but it seems like you're using all of it. Like it's not even I don't think it's even close.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, that's a good point. Well, I think the ending subject that we should end on tonight, that everybody just needs to recognize is the moon is wobbling, and
Seriously.
the tides might be changing, but the plus side is it just gives those fish more room to swim. You know, it frees up some land, it takes some land from the people and gives it back to the fish, you
Here's
know?
a, I don't have this in there either, but I was wondering if you saw the picture of this, but it was off the coast somewhere in Europe that they spotted by helicopter. The water was clear enough. They found another civilization under the water just off the coast, like you could see all the outlines of the
Oh, like
buildings and
an
stuff.
old
Mhm.
old city
Yeah,
that had been buried
yeah.
underwater. That's
And then
cool.
also on top of that, I was talking to my dad because he was in like water and all that kind of stuff, so he follows some of this stuff. And he said, I think it's since 1980, and if he's listening, I think he's listening to my mom. He could correct me. I think it's since 1980 that the polar ice caps have actually been growing year in and year out. We had this year was the largest amount added that we've had since then.
Ooh, I have no room to talk on that. I don't know. Yeah, that's fascinating. It goes against everything that I've heard.
So does a lot of things though,
but,
and so I was like, oh, that's probably
but I'd
right
have to.
since they're not telling us.
Yeah, it sounds like it could be people that believe the Earth is flat that have said that, but I'd have to see. I'd have to do some research on that one. That's interesting. Um, what was I gonna say? Oh, but I say I say we get into some shower thoughts
Down.
and TILs. All right, I will hit the. Well, how many TILs you got? I got 3.
I have two.
You got 2.
You go.
Perfect. All right. Today I learned that Norway. I thought this was really cool, and I want to know how much you think it would be. Norway hires Sherpas from Nepal to build paths in Norwegian mountains. Okay, they have completed over 300 projects, and they pay for one summer. And the Sherpas, the amount that they get paid for one summer of work, equals 30 years. 30 years of work in Nepal.
Thought I was supposed to guess.
So how much do you think that money is? How much money do you think that is?
Oh, how much money do I think it is that they make, and that's third? It's
Yeah.
equivalent to their 30 years. Probably
Uh,
like $3,000.
uh, well, I was just gonna have you guess because I don't know.
Oh, okay.
um,
I did look up, by the way, the ice cap thing, and sure enough, like first article I found was proof on it's been growing since 1980, the exact date I gave. So I was remembering him correctly.
okay, so Sherpas make around $4,000 a year. So let's see, 4,000 a year times
Amador's
30.
guessed 10,000.
See, that TIL seems. I mean, that means basically that they would have earned. Oh, okay, this says 2,000 a year on average. So 2,000. Okay, so I mean, still
$60 grand.
that's 60 grand for a summer. I guess
It's
possible
you know how
if
like
they're
it's
doing
a
really hard
super
work.
high risk of dying.
Yeah,
That's the thing. Like
yeah. So I could see that.
yeah, no.
60
I
grand in
totally
a
could see
summer.
that. It's like
Yeah,
we don't pay football players a ton of money just because they're famous. It's because they're going to most likely be debilitated in the next 10 to
right.
15 years, so they have to make all their money at once.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. All right, hit me.
Wait,
TILs.
hang on. Before that, I did look it up. I looked up the square kilometers for the polar ice caps in the South
Are you
Pole.
saying north and south?
This is just the South Pole. It went from in 1980, 12.5 million square kilometers, and in 2020, 13.2 million.
Wait, what were those numbers again?
12.5 million in 1980 of ice, and now 13.2 square kilometers. So it's grown by almost 1 million square kilometers.
Hmm. See, this is interesting because this says that another article just said that it decreased by 5 by it decreased by after from
If it's, I'm
2012.
saying if it's giving percentages, I'm looking at the actual data.
No, yeah, I'm not. It's not giving precision. It's like saying this is from the. Um, it's saying the extent of ice cap from 20 extent fell from 2012 to 2021, 8.867 million square miles.
That's fine, but this is from 1980 until now. So it's saying it might have gone like this, but it's saying from 80 when they started saying it was shrinking until now, it's like zero point 0.7 million kilometers additional, even though if it's fluctuated.
Hmm. Yeah, interesting. Interesting. Yeah, so we might be in a peak right now compared to the 80s, right? And
Well,
then
yeah,
the
so I'm
troughs
saying
are getting, so the troughs might be getting lower though, is the other thing.
so they've said it's less and we're all going to drown if there's more ice.
Right, but if you're in a fluctuation, the peaks might be getting more dramatic, which cause more flooding.
I think might is the key word in that.
Oh yeah, for sure. Might in both sides. 100%. Okay, TIL me.
Today I learned when the USS West Virginia, by the way, prepare yourself. This is a Debbie
Okay.
Downer one. Battleship
Mhm.
was finally salvaged 6 months after the attack on Pearl Harbor. A calendar was found in an airtight room where three trapped sailors had marked off 16 days until they died.
Ooh. Ooh. That's a bummer one.
That's crazy, though.
16 days.
Can you imagine finding that and being like, wait, if we just
Well,
like come here
it's
a little
shocking they
sooner?
had 16 days of oxygen.
True.
That's that's a
What
real
if
shocker there.
this is maybe irreverent, but I would probably do this. I'm like, hey guys, what if, I mean, we know we're going to die here in like the next 3 minutes. What if we just marked off like 16 days on this wall?
That's 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 at least it gives them some street cred, you know?
Right.
That's not if you got to go
It's a
out, you're going out with
possibility.
a
I
yeah,
guess
like it'd be really a bummer if you saw like 1 day marked off. It'd be like one. Like,
yeah, maybe they
oh.
did that and they're like, wait, that's going to be too much of a bummer.
Mhm.
I don't know.
6. That's yeah.
It's
All
terrible.
right,
It's
TIL.
terrible, but I hope it wasn't that bad.
On that same nautical kind of theme,
Mm-hmm.
today I learned that some shark species have been known to reproduce via virgin birth,
It's weird.
meaning and they weren't like they were not what's it called hermaphrodite. They were um, basically they what and it just recently happened to a hammerhead shark that was in captivity. It basically
It's like Jurassic Park,
the
dude.
shark was able to ovulate, and that embryo replicated itself, and it basically created a clone of the mother
It's messed up.
because it didn't have any. It just was basically XX,
Well,
right?
I mean, that's what happened in Jurassic Park. So this is they're just proving that this could happen.
Yeah, look out for those freaking dinosaurs, man. All right, TIL me.
Yeah. Today I learned that Dick Williams, a Titanic survivor who spent over 6 hours waist deep in freezing water, after the rescue, doctors wanted to amputate both his legs. He refused, and he went on to win the Wimbledon men's doubles in 1920.
Ooh, man. Can you imagine that dude's well, he good for him, man. He put it on himself. He's like, listen, if I die of gangrene, it's on me. You know, that's brutal. That's harsh, but it's also
I
a
bet
good
that
story.
dude wouldn't wear a mask. Just saying. Like, he's like,
Yeah,
you know what? I almost lost my legs and face and arms and everything, and a boat tried to sink me.
yeah. It'd
Come
also
at
be
me.
interesting to see how that guy went out. Like, it would be
That's
a real
true.
bummer if
What
he
if it
went
was
out from
like,
a
yeah, I
splinter.
know that's exactly what I was gonna say. It's like a splinter, or he like
Yeah.
tripped and fell on the curb. Like,
Like somebody told him, "Hey, you should put antibiotic ointment on that." He's like, "Are you kidding me? I survived Titanic. I'm not
yeah,
gonna put antibiotic ointment
I
on
already
that."
had
And
that.
then he got,
I,
and then he got
what if
sepsis.
he just for the rest of his life he treated every ailment with just ice? Like he's
Yeah,
just like, didn't fail me then. Like,
that's amazing. All right, my last TIL. Today I learned that approximately 4.5 pounds of every 150-pound adult is bacteria. So close to 5 pounds
I
of every
believe that.
150-pound adult
I'm
is
actually kind of
bacteria.
shocked it's not more. Okay, so before we do shower thoughts,
Okay.
I was watching, or I had a video on driving back from someone's house, and you know, like a YouTube ad comes on or whatever, and it was just playing in the
Yeah.
car, and it came on, and it was like they always try to get you right in the beginning, like that tagline.
Mm.
And I got to be honest, like Poopery has hooked me. Dollar Shave Club has definitely hooked me.
Oh, did you buy it, Poopery?
No, but I'm just saying, like
Oh,
I've watched a 2.5 minute commercial
I enjoy those ads.
about the Squatty
Agreed.
Potty,
Poopery.
Old Spice. Like these are the commercials that would have been the jingles that got stuck in people's heads back then. They have now somehow brainwashed us into watching 3 minute commercials about their product. Right. This one was hilarious. It goes, "Did you know right now you could have over 8 pounds of poop in you?" And from the back, my son says, "Please don't hit skip."
Oh, respect. I respect that because that is definitely a question. I think I've asked
No,
you
you
before.
have, dude. It got nuts. And maybe it's just snake oil. I'm totally okay with that in this commercial because they
Yeah.
talked about like some people have up to 8 undigested meals in their system at any given time, and some people, if they're
Terrible.
struggling at that amount, have up to 20 pounds of backed up fecal matter.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I've seen horribly constipated individuals. Yeah, I have no doubt about that.
Yeah,
But for the average person to have 8 pounds at one point, that's more than I would have anticipated at one time.
there's
Average.
definitely times where I've thought I lost at least 10 pounds. Um, there's been definite times where I've gone into the bathroom after like some of my smallest children, and I thought I'm going to have to take them to the hospital.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. I've definitely had a 2-year-old clog a toilet. Maybe no, not 2-year-old.
Yeah,
Well, maybe no 3-year-old. I think it
if
was
you
probably
have to
3-year-old clog a
smash
toilet.
it,
Oh yeah.
that's too much. Something
If you
is wrong.
take if you take a twig from the backyard, or if you take a hanger from the closet to force the poop down then that kid needs
Yeah,
some Miralax.
yeah, they need
Um.
something. I think they're
All
missing.
right.
I think it's magnesium. It's a lack of minerals in our diet. I think.
It's something. I got 3 shower thoughts. How many you got?
I've got more than that. I'll go first.
Okay.
People are so bad with turn signals that even when we see them used, we're still not sure their intentions.
Very true. We don't trust them. We don't trust them.
And I would
Very true.
say, with about to have a child get their license, it's a lesson I learned. I remember my dad telling me, you don't listen, you do not expect that they are going to do what their turn signal says. You wait until
Right.
they start to turn.
Yeah. Yep. Very good point. Amador made a comment. He said someone's grandma at one point was clogged, so clogged she pooped out of her mouth, which is true. I actually have seen individuals so constipated that they actually vomited stool, and that's a terrible, terrible halitosis situation.
That's a
Terrible bad breath.
that's halitosis. I think it's like one step
Literally,
above. Like,
literally poopy breath.
yeah,
Yeah, that's not great. All right. So shower thought.
yeah.
You go first.
I already did. I just did one.
Oh, sorry. Oh no. Okay, I'll go.
You go.
Uh, Typically, this is kind of interesting. I think it is interesting that typically the poorest people in the poorest countries are like super thin. Usually, the poorest people in the poorest countries,
Hmm.
but then the poorest people in the richest countries have a tendency to be overweight.
It's true.
It's just an interesting dichotomy there.
It's because they're not getting a lack of food. We just subsidize the crappy food.
Yeah, yeah.
It
In the
shouldn't.
wealthy
It
countries.
shouldn't be cheaper to eat a McDonald's than it is to get healthy food.
We subsidize the wrong foods
Yes,
if we're subsidizing.
100%.
All right, hit me.
Yeah, I'm all for like if we give people food stamps that we show them how to cook to save money too.
Yeah.
Okay, because honestly, even if people have enough money, just a side tangent for a second. Because in our town, ever since the pandemic, all of the drive-ins, at all times are full, and all I can think is either people A, have no time at all, or B, and I think this is more likely, they have no idea how to make food for themselves at home, and that is really sad.
Yeah, I believe that.
Technically speaking, at the end of the day, all boots were made for walking.
Yeah, yeah, unless it's a boot on your car. Oh.
Yeah, but we're not British.
All right, I'm just
All
saying.
right, all right.
Um. All right, so it's interesting that you can eat nearly every animal on the planet, right? Like almost every animal is edible on this planet.
Yeah.
But most plants are not digestible or they're poisonous. And I was thinking about this. I was thinking about this the other day. I was like, that kind of says something about society and vegetarian versus meat eater only diets. Like, if the majority of the caloric availability in the world is animal based, it makes you wonder uh, the way our bodies were developed to survive off of one nutrient versus another, or one resource versus the other. Just kind of an interesting thought.
Well, plants don't make you full. That's the problem. They do provide some. There are some certain things that plants do provide. Although if you eat the right animals,
Most
you would
plants
get
don't.
those
Yeah.
you would get those same minerals and stuff probably better and more absorbic through the meat. But yes, I would completely agree. I went back on carnivore because I felt so good the last time I did it. I'm just doing it through the month of August.
Nice.
Um,
Nice.
yeah.
Right.
So far, it's great. Greg had a comment. I say Greg, says Lisa. I think you used to have your own account, Greg, but
It's
whatevs.
Greg.
McDonald's here in Din. I think he meant Bend.
Denver?
I don't think he's in Din. Wherever you're at, is up 30% from previous years during the pandemic. That's kind of crazy and sad. Probably not. It's not, guys. That's not healthy.
How many more shower thoughts you got?
Just a couple.
Okay,
Um,
you go and then
yeah,
I got
yeah,
one more.
yeah. It won't be long before people use the 20s, 30s, and 40s to describe the 2020s, the 2030s, and 2040s.
Isn't that wild? Oh, guys, we are getting older and it's just like time is flying by. And also it's like crazy to think about our kids are going to think about the 90s like the way when we grew up thinking about the 50s or the 40s or it's just like
It is kind of funny because there's
wild.
like they're still listening to some of that classical music that came from when we thought was old music. It's like there's music
Yeah.
that my
Or
kids listen to. They're like they know even sometimes more than I do that comes from
right.
before my
Some of
time.
the classics like
But then
Beatles,
there's some
of
like Nirvana
course.
coming back up and stuff. Probably because like
Yeah.
goth and grunge is back,
Yeah.
or
Yeah,
was
goth
for a
is
week or
back.
four.
Goth is getting back, dude. It really is. It still is. I was surprised.
It always surprises me how independent they want to be, and yet how many of them hang out together. Um, yeah.
They want to be independent like their own
Yes.
friends.
Okay. If higher dimensions exist, then ghosts are probably higher dimensional beings doing lower dimensional science projects.
Say that again?
If higher dimensions exist, then ghosts are probably higher dimensional beings doing lower dimensional science projects.
Yeah. Yep. I agree. Yeah, that's a good one. I like that.
Like when we burn
Makes sense.
ants. You're like,
Yeah.
what is
Oh
that?
my
It's
gosh.
really warm. It's really warm. It's really
Ugh.
warm.
Oh. You want to think, what's it called? Spontaneous combustion is really a research study by a higher level, entity.
Like, I saw this focused
That's
beam
what
of light and then I burst into flames. We
spontaneous
have no idea
combustion
what
is
that
not an
is.
accident. Not an accident. Okay, my last shower thought.
Yep.
This is pretty cool, I think. When you dream, your brain is simultaneously creating and experiencing an event.
Yeah, I've heard
That's pretty wild.
conflicting things on that. I do think that's partially true, at least. But I've heard that you
Yeah.
can't make up faces. Like, even the human brain will only make up faces it's seen.
Ooh, I don't know about that, man. I
Or
feel like I've
it's
seen.
like features of them, like you can't uniquely. It's always going to be something of something you've seen.
Hmm. Hmm.
At
Yeah,
least for
could
faces.
be.
That's whether it's something anything else like, but facial features like identifying features.
Hmm. Yeah, that's interesting. That partially could be accurate. Yeah, interesting. Hit me. What do you got?
You know you're an adult. Speaking of being old, if you remember your birth year rather than your age.
Yeah.
Your age just
Hmm.
kind of stops mattering as much.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's true. Yeah, that's a good point. You got any more?
Mm-mm, that's it.
I'm all done. Awesome.
I went twice, like snuck one in there, and it lined up perfectly. So
Perfect. Awesome. All right, guys. Well, we appreciate you all. We appreciate your input and your thoughts. And yeah, I was going to talk with Jordan and I. We might have another subject podcast coming out in a little bit here over like how we've done like, the Donner Party. We've done
oh gosh.
certain
Wait. Throw the idea
subject
out,
fun
and then people can
podcasts.
comment later and see if they want to hear it.
Oh, I haven't solidified it yet, so I want to talk to you a
What's
little bit more
some of
before I
your
do that.
ideas?
I'm gonna talk to you
Okay,
first
fine.
about it.
You're like, actually, I don't know if we can actually talk about it in public.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, the one that we had talked about beforehand, before the podcast, remember?
I
Right.
don't
So
think
I want
that's
to
gonna
talk to you more
work.
about stuff.
Yeah.
I know. I want to talk to you more about that stuff.
Yeah.
So that's why I wasn't blurting it out, right? That was probably a
But
good
you
call for
could
me not to
anyway.
do that.
People will be like, "Oh no, don't do that.
Ah.
You'll never get that."
Okay. Well, guys, tell us what you think about. We've been dabbling with the idea of talking about like socially awkward things to talk about, but to talk about them in public on podcasts. And I know there's pros and cons to it.
No, I'm
But like
okay with
even like the
socially awkward
subject.
stuff. The subject you
Well,
brought up,
but
I
it
was
is
like,
socially
yeah.
awkward to talk about like finances, right? Like to people, like to have someone on and talk about finances to a degree of like, experiences with money and like maybe even like your own personal level of debt versus, income experiences and advice, that sort of stuff. Like not like Dave Ramsey level kind of advice, but just the kind of like open air
Dave
kind of
Ramsey.
situation and conversations that might be awkward.
Here, I'm
But
gonna sell you this
we're dabbling
envelope,
with that.
and you're gonna put money in it that you don't have, and you're gonna pay your bills. It's gonna work.
Yes. Yes, yes. All right. Well, guys, we appreciate y'all. Have a fantastic week.
Y'all,
Stay safe, stay cool, stay away from fires,
yeah. Stay away from fires
and
and
we will
flooding
talk to y'all
and the moon
super
wobbles.
duper soon.
Yep.
And the moon wobbles. Wobbly, wobbly, woo. Wobbly, wobbly.
See you guys.